Hmm. Uh, huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Ruben Olson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Field, and thank you for joining into another episode of Cryptid Clues. This episode is a very special episode. Basically, we're going to be diving into encounters. So these episodes will go parallel along with the main episodes, which will feature me and Ruben talking about other cryptids. But these encounter episodes will either consist of myself or Ruben as the host interviewing someone who has had either an experience themselves or a close or loved one that has had an experience as well and has passed along the story to be told. So, out of respect of the privacy of the guest on today's episode, we're going to be referring to them as similar percentage. And basically, their story takes place years and years ago, basically in eastern Kentucky, with their grandfather's account of Dogman. And it's really an awesome account to listen to and to dive into. So, without further ado, here we go. Similar percentage. Thank you very much for being here today and for taking the time to go over this encounter that your grandfather had experienced. I'm very excited to hear it in your words. So start from the beginning and take us through it.
Well, like I said on Reddit, he was the type of person he didn't exaggerate on story. I've got uncles that love to tell big tales of stuff, and he didn't. He was really trustworthy on stuff. And from what he had told me was they had bought that property back, I would say in the 60s, I believe. And everybody around had, hollered stuff that they had seen stuff up in the mountains and everything else. And, talks. They didn't really call it Dogman back then. It was just something up in there that wasn't normal, pretty much. And he didn't believe none of them. So they bought it. My mama was terrified of it at first, and she was. She did not like living there because, from what everybody had said, she just said it was creepy and she didn't like it. But they moved in, and he he said that he had heard stuff, weird noises, howls, and junk like that. He didn't think much of it. Thought most of it was bears, which he had seen a couple of bears and stuff up there. But that night, he said that he got woke up probably. He said it was late, really late, and he woke up. He heard like scratching and kind of beating on the door, like something was trying to push its way in. And he got his gun, went to the door, and right where the front door was, there was a big old picture window. And he tried to look out here because it looked out onto the porch where, the door and stuff was at. And he couldn't see anything except a big old shadow blocking the light, which the light was one of those, the old timey with the hanging cord that comes down. That's what it was. And he tried to look out there, but it was blocking that and put a big old shadow on the porch. So he went to the door, opened it up, which the way he was, he didn't care. He had his gun, so he just swung it open. So the first thing he seen was this huge, massive thing. It wasn't, he said it was about 6.5 foot tall, broad shouldered, covered in dark hair, said it stunk to high heaven. Said it was horrible the way it smelled, like a mix between a wet dog and like a sewage pipe that had been open. Said it was just horrible. And said that he looked at it and it looked at him. He said it looked almost as terrified as he was. And he said within the span of a few seconds, it took off. He pulled his gun up, hit shot off, but then he ended up shooting it in I think it was the right calf is where he ended up shooting it at, on its leg. And no, that freaked him out badly. and he took a lot to scare that man, and he did. He said that its legs, from what he said, you know how dogs bend backwards, where their knees are supposed to be. Technically, he said its legs did that. That the knee went backwards. Didn't say anything about its feet or nothing like that, but he said that freaked him out. You know, the way it stood. Said it stood kind of hunched over a little bit, which I don't know. Like I said, to me, that's creepy enough on its own, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did was this the first time that he started to talk about this encounter was with you, or has he mentioned it all in the past?
My mom said he had talked about it to her and one of her older brothers one time. And when he told me, that was the first time he ever told me. I might have been about 8, I think, at the time. He didn't talk about it. That's what I'm saying. He didn't, you know, he didn't sit and tell everybody about it. Oh, yeah, I shot. No. He very rarely talked. It freaked him out. He very rarely brought it up. Very rarely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't blame him. From what you're saying, when both parties seem very surprised, it's interesting because you don't hear these things in encounters, at least kind of being caught off guard. It sounded like it definitely didn't expect that door to swing right open.
No, I figure, he said he figured too that it might have just been investigating, you know, kind of seeing, because that house had been there. The house that was there, they didn't build it. It had sat there for years and years. And it had stood empty for quite a long time as well. He said the only thing he figured is it might have been investigating where maybe it like caught their scent or something and might have been around there. That's about the only thing he can figure because, yeah. He said he was very surprised when he opened that door.
Yeah. You mentioned it was about 2 months that they were living there before they saw some bears and some cubs.
Mhm.
I guess this was shortly after that then.
Probably within, I'd say, a month of him seeing that, he saw that. Which he saw wildlife, which when I was a kid, you seen wildlife. You know, if there was something still there when I was a kid, it never bothered the wildlife, and it didn't. It was there, you know, never acted scared or anything like that. He said that even after he had seen it, that he said he heard it twice more after he had shot it. He didn't go back to the door. He said he heard it on the porch, and it would come up to the door. And he said he knew it was hit, said because you'd hear a step, and then you'd hear its foot drag. And he'd come to the door, and he'd growl, and then he'd leave. That was it. He said he'd never tried to beat on the door no more, which I guess it learned the first time not to do it again. But he'd never tried to beat on the door no more, nothing else. But yeah.
And I take it was a few more times, like you said, a couple more times he heard it, but I guess it's just kind of, it subsided after a while. It started to not come around.
No. And see, he had livestock. None of his livestock was ever bothered. Nothing on the property was ever bothered. That's why he said like he had said, my uncles like to tell stories about stuff like that. And it does not sound nothing like what he talked about, you know. He said it didn't bother anything. He said it never, you know, nothing on his property was touched. His animals weren't touched, you know. Even with bears get curious. They dig into trash and garbage and everything. Nothing.
Yeah, you mentioned aunt and uncles spinning a few like lies and such along those lines. Are they just kind of riding along the tellings, I guess, of just, oh, it must have been like a Dogman that did that or something along those lines?
Well, I think it's a southern thing. Where I'm from, it's like, you know, you could take somebody that could be out in the forest and say they hear like a big sound or a howl or a growl. Well, by the time they make it out, it's going to be like a 3-hour story, and they, you know, got attacked by something and everything else. It's just, it's just something around here that they like the notoriety of it, I guess. They like spinning tales, maybe not in a malicious way, but they just like having that big story to tell somebody.
Well, you wrote those that you ask to hear their stories.
Hmm.
I liked how you worded that, because they're not super forthcoming about sharing it, but those that are showing interest, then they'll reveal it.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Where did that question go? Um, you mentioned in your write-up that you haven't seen anything inexplainable. I was wondering if you yourself have experienced anything peculiar.
Not with that. I don't, I'm not a disbeliever. I believe that it's possible for anything to be real. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? And there are enough believable encounters, I think, that you have to have at least a small belief that something is out there that is unexplainable to that point that it sticks with someone that much. But now, as far as anything cryptids or anything, no, I've never seen anything that would make me say, "Oh yeah, that's what it is," But I won't go against it either. So maybe someday I will.
Yeah.
I like looking
So
for it. Thanks.
thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. We're just about to jump to an ad break real quick. We do not choose the ads, they are all randomly selected. We'll be back in just a moment. Thank you. What are your thoughts on what a dogman is? I'm curious, because if as your grandfather had this crazy experience and shared this information with you, and you've kind of deciphered what is to be true and what isn't, I'm curious on your perspective of what this thing is.
I don't know. I mean, from what I've looked into it, it kind of goes two ways. And I kind of straddle the fence on it because, on one hand, a lot of people talk about it being supernatural. I can see sides from that because, everything that goes along with it and all that. And then some people talk about it being just a weird sort of animal of some sort. I don't know. To me, I'd lean more towards animal from the way that he talked about it and from stories that I've heard from other people that are more believable. They There's intelligence, but not, you know, amazing intelligence. There's intelligence like, I don't know, like a highly intelligent animal, pretty much. I don't think that hits, some supernatural thing that's out here that, can mind control, like I've seen some people talk about, or do crazy things like that. I honestly think that hit just some form of animal. I think that is highly intelligent. Probably not on the same level as a human, but probably really high up there. Because it can stay hidden. Anything that can stay hidden is highly intelligent.
Hmm. Absolutely. Is mind control one of the stories that goes around about it? I've never heard that before.
There is on my side of the mountain, I'm telling you. You wouldn't
Oh my
believe half
goodness.
the stuff that you get from these people, and you don't get me wrong, To each their own on their stories. I won't sit and call someone a liar, but now my family I will. So yeah.
Hmm.
Oh Lord.
Aside from mind control, I'm curious what is like another tale or belief on it.
Well, locally there's one person that says that there is a dog man up where they live, and that they have gotten into their car before. They have moved their car before, like, which, that this part would be more believable, but they would pick like where the trunk is, pick up the end of it and move it. I could see that, something that big is going to have a lot more strength than what we're going to have. But like getting in the car and moving it and stuff like that, that's just no. Um, on the more believable side, I've heard a few people talk about seeing, okay, where we live, that we have a train that kind of runs through the center of our like county where we're at, because we used to run coal and everything a lot. And a lot of people talk about seeing them around that. A lot of people talk about seeing them around the railroad tracks. I don't know why they seem to kind of stay around it, but a lot of people out hiking, certain people that live along them and stuff like that, says that they've seen odd things like that. They've seen weird, like three-toed footprints that's way larger than anything that is around here. Because like the biggest animal we've got around here would be a bear, black bears and stuff like that. That's it. and they'll find really weird large tracks and stuff like that. They'll hear really weird howls and stuff, kind of a mix of a scream and a howl. I don't know. I've never heard nothing like that. I don't think I'd want to hear something like that because it kind of sounds terrifying. But yeah, the oddest thing is, I can't remember who it was. Somebody talked about seeing a solid white, like an albino one here. I've only heard that told one time, so I don't know, you know, if it's true or not. But yeah, they had talked about seeing a white one with a baby. So yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. So, just in terms of its hair, or I guess like white isn't kind of looking like more older,
No, just like solid white.
just solid white.
Yes,
Wow,
just
very
solid white.
interesting. With a baby too.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I've never heard anything like that. Wow.
Mm-mm.
um, I'm curious. Aside from Dogman, on your part of the world, are there many other kind of cryptid stories or encounters that people talk about? I'm assuming, we we in the Pacific Northwest we refer to them as Bigfoot, but it's pronounced, is it buggers?
Around here, everybody just calls it Bigfoot.
They call it Bigfoot. Okay,
Yeah,
everybody seems to have a different name for it, and yeah.
yeah, we just call
It-
it
are,
Bigfoot around here.
Okay. Are there a lot of like Bigfoot's sightings around there, or are there any other cryptids that seem to kind of uh, pop into stories?
Now, Bigfoot, you get hit a lot in our more sort of rural mountainous areas where there's not many people that live. The whole stinking place is rural, but you got patches of population, and in the places that there ain't much, you do get Bigfoot stories and stuff. You get them. I've never really heard about anybody saying like they've been attacked or like something's happened or anything. A lot of people will just say that when they're up in, the mountains and stuff, that they've seen stuff like that, or seen like the little burrows and stuff that they make and everything, like with the trees, like making the nests, and they've seen them up in there while they've been hunting and stuff like that. But that's
Hmm.
about it. I'm trying to think. I don't think we have anything weird on the cryptid level besides the dog man and the Bigfoot. That's about it. Mostly around here, everybody's obsessed with haunts and ghosts. So
Hmm.
that
Are
kind
there a
of.
lot of
Go ahead. Sorry.
sorry. Are there a lot of encounters with that, like paranormal?
Oh Lord, there's enough ghost stories. It'd take 12 hours to do this podcast, and there is. That's like I said. Everybody. We have local ghost stories that have been told for 50 years or more.
Hmm.
Women on the side of the road in wedding dresses that get picked up at certain areas. Um, certain people. There's a local school around here that is said to be haunted. Now I've seen weird stuff. I went to it. I seen some really weird stuff at that place. And when they was building it, there was a fella that got shot, and he said haunted. And like I said, have I ever seen like a ghost? No, but you get some really creepy feelings in that place, like really creepy. And you hear. We never did like being in the gym is where he mainly, I guess, where most people would feel him at. And you did not want to have to go in there by yourself for any reason. Because it just felt like, how you feel when somebody's watching you. That's what you always felt in that place. And no, that one's creepy. A lot of haunted cemeteries. A couple of them I've been to that I will verify that yes, I ran from one of them. And I did. Ran like a chicken. We'd went up to it on Halloween. I love ghosts and ghost stories and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, we're going to go up there on Halloween. Go up there, waiting around for midnight to come. And we're sitting there. And you know how something sounds when it's underwater?
Hmm.
Like a sound is rushing towards you underwater. all around us we could hear that, and then all of a sudden it was like it breached the water, and just the awfulest growl sound I've ever heard in my life. We just literally dumped everything we had and just got in the vehicles and left as the end of it. That one hit. Oh, no.
So you were in a group setting for there, so you could be reassured and look at others like, did you hear that?
Oh yes, every one of them hurt.
Yeah.
We all jumped up at the same time, and we did.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most reassuring things when you experience something like that, because then you immediately you're having, I guess, probably like maybe a doubt, like, did that really happen? Did I hear
Yeah.
that? And then when someone else can confirm that with you, then it becomes very heavy. Like, oh my goodness.
Yes, it helps reassure you ain't going crazy, so it's always good.
Yeah. The the women in wedding dresses, I'm curious. So they're specifically detailed as being in wedding dresses, or are they just kind of labeled as like a woman in white kind of thing?
Well, the one that I always heard told is she's in a wedding dress. That, which actually I think, don't take my word on it, but I believe that somebody on one of the local ghost sites that I'm on, they said that they had found the article about her. Apparently, she got married, and wedding night comes around, and her husband got drunk and killed her. Somebody had found that, and she fit the description. Apparently, that several people had seen her. She would get in your car about 2 miles up from the cemetery where she's buried at, and they can, if it's the same one, they said that she was buried there. But she would get in the car about 2 miles up from there. And then when you got there, she would just disappear out of the back of the car. One of those
Wow.
stories. That's why I'm a little,
Yeah.
yeah. But now, mind you, I don't drive through there at night when they say she gets in your car. So yeah.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, that would be terrifying.
Hmm.
I wouldn't even know what to, especially if you're driving and that happens. I mean, yeah, what do you
I
do in that scenario?
I joined her because I'd recognize, so,
Oh, yeah.
so I'd be with her then.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, that's fascinating. We have uh so many local kind of ghost stories too. Not nearly as many. It's usually like, oh, maybe one building that's labeled as a haunted house of
Hmm.
sorts, but yeah, it sounds like there's such a rich history of that, and stories too. Obviously, stories separated from ones that are maybe a little bit inflated, a little too much. But I like what you had wrote about the like, by logic,
Mm,
you have to assume that 10% of all the stories we see are true.
yes.
And those people witness something amazing and terrifying. I really like that perspective. I think it's a good stance to have, and it's not totally welcoming it in with open arms, but at the same
Hmm.
time, it's not keeping your mind closed to it either. I think that was very well written.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Because that's the way I look
Um,
at things. It's, because you have to keep an open mindedness. You have to. There are so many things in this world that we've yet to discover. So, how can anyone honestly sit there and say, oh, no, it doesn't exist? You don't know. Until every avenue has been searched and looked into, you cannot say that it doesn't exist. And you have
Absolutely.
to give people out of everything. Like I said, like I put on there that 10%. There is a 10%. If you take 10 people, one person is going to be telling the truth about that story. By logic, by science, and everything else, one person is going to be telling the truth. That they have seen something that they cannot explain to the point that it has stuck with them that long. And it has.
I definitely agree. Definitely agree. Um, I don't have any other further questions to throw your way, but I just want to say thank you so much for doing this again and for sharing your grandfather's story and the information after about the ghosts, the paranormal. I really appreciate that as well.
You're welcome out. Like I said, I appreciate your contact.
Yeah, no, of course. It's I'm trying to look around and see people's experiences or encounters, and there's some that seem a little bit more said earlier, like inflated or exaggerated to a degree, but yours, I found it really seemed very sincere, especially from what your grandfather had gone through, and I really wanted to hear it from you, like in your words.
It's easy to become a storyteller. It is. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Because if you can make that story sound 10 times better for, the audience you're going to, I can't blame a lot of people that do it, and I can't because it's, you get that rush from people listening to you and wanting to hear your story and stuff like that. But I do wish that they would realize that they make this side of paranormal with cryptids harder for people to take seriously when they do that.
Hmm.
That puts a huge hindrance on, anyone listening to anything about stuff like that. Because people automatically go to the ones that, oh, he's 12 foot and broad as a Cadillac type stuff. And I mean,
Hmm.
you know, it, yeah, it puts a hindrance on it for people that are actually looking for the truth. And it is.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I'm with your permission, I'll probably take the Reddit link and actually put it in the description of this episode when it goes live, just so people can read over the story as well
Okay.
and
Yeah,
tune
that's
into
fine.
it.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's fine.
Well, yeah, no, thank you again. I really appreciate your time for doing this.
You're
This
welcome.
is it's been awesome.
It has, like I said, listen, I'm happy to hear my own self speak, so I'm good to go talking about anything. So, yeah.
Oh, right on. Thanks again, Similar Percentage, for joining. That is it for this Encounters episode. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this. I think this was awesome, and I can't wait to try and get more people on the show and hear their stories. So be sure to check us out at CryptidClues.ca is our home base. You can find us also on social media like Twitter, Facebook, Cryptid Clues. And then you can also send us an email if you like. If you have a cryptid you want us to talk about, we're also on Patreon, but our email is cryptidclues@gmail.com. So until next time, we'll see you soon. Have a good one.